Hi, everyone, and welcome to Queer Leadership 101, powered by We Create Space. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Neil Hudson-Basing. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Community and Events Director for We Create Space. Just a quick visual description for those that need it. I have blonde, floppy hair, big, thick Tom Ford glasses, a couple of face piercings, and I am wearing a We Create Space Pride and Beyond t-shirt. I am joined by the brilliant Rakshet Sachdev. Rakshet, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, well, this morning.
You are this one. It's afternoon for us here. It's morning for you. Wherever you're joining us from in the world, you are very welcome to Queer Leadership 101. Rakshat, I'm going to come over to you for an intro shortly, just to hear a bit more about you. But before I do, actually, I'm going to just run through a few slides to tell people what Unlock is. So Unlock is our queer leadership network, again, powered by We Create Space. And what it's all about is it's enabling people to unlock their innate potential. We want to see a world where queer leaders are celebrated and equipped with the tools to thrive. We are a community-led learning platform, network, and all things business related. What does our network look like? Well, it's made up of LGBTQ plus future leaders, professionals, entrepreneurs, leadership experts, and everyone in between. It really is for everyone. What that looks like? Well, workshops, retreats, networking, resources, events like the one today, Queer Leadership 101. We also host our Unlock Book Club, where we talk to queer leaders who are authors, using their voices to amplify other voices and promote positive change. And we have Queer Leadership 101 and our masterclasses as well. We've got a masterclass on the 26th of June, which is all about being empowered by tech. I know when some people hear the word tech, they get a little bit freaked out, but we're not going to be those people. So join us on 26th of June. But that's it for my slides. I'm just going to stop sharing those. And I'm going to dive into the conversation with Rakshet. So bear with me. There we go. Rakshet, please do take a moment to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you do, and how you show up in the world.
All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is Rakshet Sachdev. My pronouns are he, him. Um, for a visual context, I'm a South Asian man with, I like to say chocolate skin because it just makes me feel a little bit happier in life. With curly, thick black hair, I'm wearing a gray t-shirt and a blue/black like sweater on top because it's a bit early and it's a bit chilly. I guess my Recreate Space Pride t-shirt must be in the mail because I haven't got it yet. Um,
You said this is a couple of years old.
okay, yeah. How so in the world currently, I am in between roles. I was at a corporate job for about 10 and a half years until the end of last year. Moved around a bit, was in the UK for a couple of years with that, then recently moved back home to Thailand, where I'm in the process of trying to figure out what I want to do next. But one of the things I'm really passionate about is empowering queer leaders and the queer community in the Southeast Asian region, as we've seen a lot of change there in regards to laws passing for same-sex marriage. So I think there's going to be big momentum moving forward and just making the world a more inclusive place.
I mean, I love that you've been in this career for like over a decade and now you're taking time to flex and to figure out what's next. And that is so key when you think about that because for so many people it's a white knuckle crack on and just work, work, work. Why has that been so important to you? And what kind of what was the aha moment that said I need to do this?
I think if I go back to when I was at corporate, and I think the first aha moment was that I was at a youth, like global youth conference. I think it was 2018. It was a very long time ago now, where I got invited to be on a panel to talk about religion for some reason or the other. And I remember sitting on stage, and at that point, I wasn't out yet, like corporately. I was out personally with friends, but on a corporate scale, no. And I came out publicly on stage and talked about how it's important to be queer. And it had no issues with my religion. I practice Hinduism, so I've looked into it and there was really nothing against it. and found it, oh my God, this is the aha moment. The reason behind it was one of the objectives of going to this big youth conference was when we were to return back to the corporate setting, the idea was you would come up with a project to like help the world globally, whether it was hunger or sanitization or anything around that. But I realized that if we didn't get like the house in order, like the corporate setting, there wasn't really a drive for me to want to change the world. So I came back, and that's when we set up like the employee resource groups within the company, with the LGBTQ one being the first one that we set up.
It's so funny how so many of us working in the DEI space, whether that's as public speakers as we both do on top of other jobs, and showing up for the community and activism, so much of that starts in EIGs, right? And I think when we talk
Mhm.
about our journey as queer leaders, and the subtitle of Queer Leadership One is, lessons learned from my journey as an LGBTQ plus change maker.
Yeah.
So many of those journeys start with ERGs and networks.
Honestly, I think it just helps you build that framework initially, and it gives you the privilege to like push the boundaries a little bit and try to express yourself and see what type of leader you are and how you want to show up in the world. And then because doing it in a little corporate setting, whether it's a really small company or a global conglomerate, it allows you to kind of flex those muscles and then kind of see what works best for you before taking it to a more global stage.
I agree. I think because for so many intents and purposes, ERGs are kind of left to their own devices without much support. So that does give space for growth that you might not necessarily have in
Mhm.
your regular role, your regular 9 to 5, your day job, rather than your gay job. Um, Right, you touched on queer leadership there, and I'm going to just jump straight in and I'm going to ask you another aha moment. What makes you a queer leader, in your own words? And was there a definitive moment where you maybe embraced that title, perhaps a story or an anecdote?
I would, in my head, I break that down into the two individual words, queer and leader. I mean, queer, we were born like this. So to me, it's just how do I show up as a leader, intersectionally, whether it be someone from a South Asian market or someone from a different ethnic group than the majority of people in the room, or someone that is queer, and then how that then helps people around me feel more comfortable. I think the aha moment really was just coming back to corporate and then having people come up to you, like maybe after our first Pride event and being like, oh, this was really empowering. It helped me come out to my family or come out to colleagues that have never done it before. And then I was like, yeah, we need to show up because then other people feel comfortable enough to show up in the same space. If you're the first one to do it, then hopefully you get the big first follower and then the community grows from that point.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It really is that journey, and it starts with showing up for yourself and kind of stepping into that, because it is a role that you need to step into.
Exactly.
How comfortable does it sit with you?
It's hard, I think. Just showing up as a leader in any sort of capacity is something that's difficult because if people are then following you, you don't want to make a mistake, but you know like mistakes are gonna happen because nothing is perfect. Like there's always gonna be something that goes wrong. So it's just an understanding that, hey, even big global leaders make in big like CEO spaces or leaders of like the world make mistakes. So I'm okay to do the same thing because then you learn from that and then you move forward and then you build a stronger community and then you bring a stronger following potentially as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That vulnerability piece, right? The authenticity and the vulnerability behind it is a massive part of it. Um, Thinking about other people then that you may have supported in their journeys, is there a moment where you think other people can recognize in themselves? Because sometimes it takes someone recognizing it in us before
Mhm.
we recognize it. Is there a moment where you've helped someone recognize it, and what did that look like?
I think it comes down to like letting people empower themselves in whichever capacity that is. Um, some people are more in like the nitty-gritty background work and they want to help organize the events, but might not want to be like front face of it. but then empowering them to be like every role is important. Anything that you can do to help push the needle or help shape the agenda is important in any which way possible. So it's trying to understand what that person's comfortable with, helping them with that, and then seeing if you could kind of push them a little bit more to do a little bit extra to make them more comfortable with doing other things.
Yeah, I think the difference there is that it's leadership with a big L. We talk about it, we create space a lot. Leadership with a big L versus leadership with a little L. And the fact is, when you think about that, age-old saying, leading by example, anyone can do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could lead one person, you can lead 10, you can lead 100. It's just if you can help in any which way, it's important at the end of the day.
Yeah. What skills do you bring then? What do you think are your skills that you bring that you are really, really aware of and that are perhaps have been more innate to you versus ones that you've perhaps had to work on a little bit?
I I think the main one to me is just like being there to listen. I think that's something maybe I've always been strong at. And then communicating a little bit, trying to connect with people on a more empathetic level, I think is really, really important rather than just trying to it comes down to when I think about it in my head, it's listening versus hearing. You can listen to someone, but if you're not actually hearing what they're saying or understanding where they're coming from, I think that's the crucial bit that I really try to focus on because they might not even know what they're trying to explain to you. But if you're hearing them and you can connect with them on an empathetic level, you might be able to understand the nuances of what they're trying to bring to the table or what issues they're facing or what conversations they want to have.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, listening is it's such a skill that is often overlooked. As someone that considers myself a bit of a problem solver, I tend to go and jump straight in with wanting to solve a problem rather than just taking a step back and helping
Mhm.
the person evaluate. And definitely have
I
more
I
coach.
remember, I think this was like back in middle school. We were given a quiz to do in class. And I think the first question was like, it was like a 10 question quiz. And the first question was, have you read all of the questions? Yes or no? And then the next like four or five were like simple math questions or answering questions. And I think the last question was only answer question eight. And by that point, I was like, oh, I didn't actually read the instructions fully or understand what was happening in the room. And I tried to jump in and solve as quickly as you can without fully understanding the wider picture. And I think that was one of my aha moments
Yeah.
as a kid. And now thinking back to it, it was like, yeah, okay, make sure you understand the big picture.
I would love to know what percentage of people jump straight in on that one.
I think a lot of us failed it.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are perhaps some areas where you have had to work on them, where they've not come naturally?
I think one thing definitely is when it comes to working with more senior leaders. I think that's something that I've always had to work on was not the communication aspect, but showing up in the room and asking for stuff or trying to put my point across because in your head you're like, they're older than me. I'm pretty sure they're smarter than me. They know a lot more than what I'm talking about. So I didn't want to show up in the room and then make a mistake or say the wrong thing, which can happen. But and I think then you realize that, hey, for certain conversations, I'm the expert in the room. I'm here to educate them and ask them for something. And then they should be the ones that can kind of support that because I know more about this topic than they would. Otherwise, it'd be the other way around. They'd be talking to me about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I mean that talks to intergenerational learning and being able reverse mentoring even.
Mhm.
And I think we are seeing you tell me, are we seeing more appreciation for that as topics as this conversation goes into kind of, challenging this idea of age versus experience and then hierarchy within that? Are we seeing, is it better?
A
Particularly,
little bit, not as forward as I would think so. And this is coming from both like Western and Eastern corporations. I think especially in the East, there's this understanding of hierarchy that like the boss is the one that's right and will give you the direction, push it forward. So to question someone at a higher level within a company is not always seen as something proper or that you should do. Um, But again, I think it's also hard for somebody who's been an expert in a specific field to enter a room and not be an expert in that topic, but then they try to act like an expert and try to give you things to be working on without fully understanding it. Like they could be like a great person in management consulting, or like I worked in science, so they could be one of the top scientists in their field. But then when you bring them into an ERG setting and want to have a conversation about diversity and inclusion, something that they might not be familiar with, for them to go from expert to learner in a situation is also very difficult.
Having been in academia for 10.5 years and kind of, me with my, nearly 2 decades of event experience and then working with these academics who are esteemed in their professions,
Mhm.
but then trying to say to them, but I'm the events person and I kind of know what I'm talking about. What tips do you have for people navigating that situation, particularly as you've said, particularly as you've rightly pointed out, there are some cultural sensitivities around that.
Yeah, I think it's again coming in with like empathy and being able to listen and speaking to people on a more basic level of understanding to talk to them through the issues. If someone starts to get confrontational, maybe take it back a step and try to like ease the tension before moving on to the next point. Because if they get confrontational and then you react with confrontation, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's how to just ease the tension and then bring everyone back to like a similar level of understanding. Even if it's like, okay, this meeting isn't going anywhere, don't be afraid to just be like, let's stop the meeting, pick it up offline, and then talk again when you've understood what their issue was.
Yeah. Yeah. Just taking a moment. Sometimes taking a physical breather or a step back can go a long way.
Yeah, I think it's hard to do, especially when you're in a corporate setting and you're trying to get time with the C-suite or like senior leaders, and you've got a slot in their calendar for like 10 minutes and they're busy for the next 2 months. You're trying to get as much done as possible because you might not be able to like push your agenda or get answers to your questions immediately. It's, I think, understanding that, hey, maybe you take it back, rethink about it, come back again, and just try to keep working.
Yeah. 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 Solid advice. I want to move on to you're going through a massive period of flex and change. Exciting, but I imagine a little bit scary. Within that, is there a challenge you're currently facing or experiencing in relation to your development around those ideas?
I think it's just figuring out what I want to do next in life. I think that's the biggest challenge that I'm facing. So one of the projects that I really want to work on now that I'm back in Thailand is replicating something I did like out in the West with like setting up ERGs or helping build a network of community organizers to speak at Pride events or get their voices heard. It's building that community out in a market I haven't lived in for the last like 3 to 4 years. So it's re-engaging with people that I've maybe never spoken to or spoken to once, maybe 10 years ago, and trying to see what I can do. And I guess it's daunting to ask for help, um, and not knowing what to do. Because I'm also a big planner. I like to have methodically thought out the like, you're gonna do the next this step and then the next step and the next step and the next step. And in my head, sometimes if I can't get past step one, like everything just falls apart. But it's okay to kind of move around and figure out what to do next.
Yeah. How do you approach asking for help then? Again, leaning into that vulnerability. Um, is that something that comes easily for you? Have you had a mentor? What kind of tips would you give when it comes to people reaching out and asking for help or even acquiring someone to give them a bit of guidance? Because it's quite if you're entering the unknown and you're facing that problem of I don't know what to do next,
Mhm.
it's something that so many people experience as we shift and flex. What advice would
Honest,
you give around that?
it's hard. I've always gone at life like alone or doing things on my own. So I've always found it very difficult to go ask for help because I think it comes down to, well, I'm about to sneeze. I'm sorry. No, I'm okay. Asking for help because looking like you don't know what's going on or being like a failure in the room, I think it's always been a big issue of mine. So I don't want to go to someone and be like, can you help me with this? And then fail at it and then have that person to be like, oh, I helped him. and he failed. Maybe I shouldn't help him again, kind of a situation. Um, so it was really hard for me to like reach out and find mentors. I always had like my managers find mentors for me from people that I had known within the organization. But I realized a lot later, especially in my working career, is that people want to help.
Mm.
All you have to do is really ask. If somebody can't help you, they will say, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. But a lot of people will find it in their time to be like, yeah, I'm happy to sit down, even if it's a 10-minute coffee, to talk you through what's going through your head, or be like, let's do it on a monthly basis. It's depending on the other person. And a lot of people are out here to help you and support you. So it's literally just asking that first person. If it doesn't work, ask someone else. I think maybe that's it. Maybe find like 5 people in a field that you want to get help with and then reaching out to them. There's no reason why you can't have multiple mentors. Like it's not a I have one, I can't get a second. You can have as many as you want realistically.
That I mean, even to me, that is so kind of that's such a foreign concept. I mean, it's asking for help is something I struggle with, but the idea of asking multiple people for help has never occurred to me before. Are there different? Do you have different people that you go to for different areas, problems, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, because I think the more that you build a relationship with someone, um so these are maybe mentors that I've had for like quite some times, you know that each person has a different response to a situation and you can kind of gauge what a person is going to be an expert in. So if it's conflict management, I would go to one specific person. If it's working through project management and timelines and budgets, I would go to a different person because again, not every person is an expert in every field. It's trying to figure out where I can go for specific help. Like, for example, if I wanted to know how best to reach out to companies and like or HR teams about their ERG programs, I know that I have to go to someone who works at like Recreate Space who does something like that to be like, this is how you communicate with someone. Whereas I'm sure if I came to someone at Recreate Space and be like, oh, I need help with a science project, be like, I don't think we're the right person for like the
I'm
specific.
not.
Yeah.
Someone,
So
yeah.
it's just that. And then don't be afraid. Like if they're not free, they might be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. Maybe give me a month to come back to it." Like just kind of go with it, go with the flow. Excuse me. There we go.
Bless you, finally got it out.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I mean, people are often surprisingly generous with their time and their passion and their expertise. I think that comes as a shock to so many people.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone's like, I normally sneeze twice, so I'm waiting for the second one. Like it's gonna be a while. But everyone's like, oh, we've only got 24 hours in the day. I don't have much time to do anything. But people are actually generous to, like, if you're saying, like, hey, I need your time, most people will say, yes, I will find time for you in
Yeah.
my busy schedule or my not so busy schedule, like mine currently. I will find time to have this conversation and check in and chat.
And I guess part of you being a queer leader as well is not just is the giving back. And I know that giving back is really important to you. You've mentioned Pride. Happy
Hmm.
Pride Month, and I know the Pride Month is now a Pride season. What does giving back to the community feel like to you? And I guess more than just giving back, being part of.
I think that said, you're part of this giant global changing expanding community that's so multifaceted and everyone brings in a little bit of a different perspective to the table. So it's just figuring out how can you help the people around you just a little bit, showing up at Pride with a smile, um, being an ear for someone to talk to who's going through a difficult situation. It's just figuring out what little bit can I do. And it doesn't have to be a lot. No one's saying go and like march or donate a whole bunch of money. It's really what can you do as an individual or your little group around you to help the bigger collective.
Yeah. Yeah. It look that giving back looks and feels so different to so many people, but so does community,
Mhm.
right? How did you find your community of people, whether you call a community or chosen family?
Um, for me, it was a bit difficult to find it. I found it a lot at work once the ERG was set up because then um, it was easier to know who was part of the community in a workplace because I think when I started it, like there was no easy tell sign to be directed to somebody to be like, hey, they're running the LGBTQ plus community. You can go and like meet people there. And then just trying to make friends. And I think, like, for example, We Create Space has been a great community, like m making friends all over the world, building networks that way. So it's even if it's in an online community, it could be really important and be like a good way to, it's just an outlet to speak to people and then connect with like-minded individuals.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's often those I find that particularly with We Create Space, being part of the LGBTQ plus community, but particularly with We Create Space, being around those kind of people, people like yourself, people like the collective or anyone that just
Mhm.
rocks up to any of our events, it does enforce it empowers you in a way that helps you to believe that you are making a difference, that you are a queer leader out there.
Yeah. And I mean, it can be scary. I remember the first one or two We Create in-person events I ever went to. I went alone. And when I'm in a new space and I don't know anyone, I usually then end up being really shy and just standing to the side. But I think I remember I had a couple of people come up and say hi to you. So whether you're the new person at the event and shy, or you've been there multiple times, maybe look out and then make connection with somebody new because everyone's just there to try to build that network together.
Absolutely. And that's an example of leadership in itself. You see someone standing there, go and speak to them, make them feel welcome. That in itself is queering things up. It's literally like, taking someone in and making them feel that they belong. That's a real example of leadership that I think so many people overlook.
Exactly.
We asked you to provide three takeaways under the pillars of inclusion, well-being, and leadership for the audience. So this is based on our top 10 considerations under each of those pillars. So what do you have for us?
So we can go through them one at a time, but the three that I picked up was diverse representation, empowerment tools, and then visible role models. And I think they all kind of connect with each other. I think diverse representation is so critical and so necessary because if that person isn't present in the room where a conversation is happening, it can be overlooked or you might not think about it in that situation. And um, I mean, it can come down to as little bit as coming up with a new policy. Like, have you thought of everyone that could be impacted by this? And I remember, I think it's a real story. Somebody can fact check me, but I think when Google were developing like the YouTube app on the phone on somebody's phone, and it would auto rotate when you would turn the phone. I think everyone in the room was right-handed. So when someone with the left hand picked up their phone and rotated and everything was upside down, they were like, "Oh, this is very interesting." And again, like I think that's a real story. But then it's just, have you had a enough people look at your um project or your group or anything to make sure that they're present. And then it's not just a tick spot that you have like one brown person, one queer person, one white person in the room. You need to have multiple identities being present because everybody is so different. Everyone brings such a different aspect to life that you need to have multiple voices of even the same group of people. And then that links down to visible role models because then the more that you've got diverse representation and the more people are being visible, the more other people are going to be willing to join your community and know who to talk to and find somebody that's as close as how they might identify to go and have a conversation with. And then I think the last one was empowerment tools. And I think tools in any which way, whether that's like speaking programs so that you can be more confident speaking, or writing programs, or like development programs, anything that you can help yourself grow a little bit, you can then pass that knowledge on to somebody else.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Putting yourself out there, take what opportunities are out there when it comes to that growth mindset and really stepping into whether you feel comfortable with queer leader or not, basically,
Mhm.
tapping into your potential and knowing that there is potential there. Thank you so much. You can't be what you can't see, right? And so all of that does flow. I did spot that in your takeaways. They all do flow really beautifully into each other. My final question for you is, What's the biggest lesson you've learned along the way that you'd like to share as words of encouragement or wisdom?
I think it's something that I also still work on is don't go at it alone. Um, Somebody has most likely tried what you're doing and either succeeded or failed at it. So if you reach out to that person, either work with them to then take it to the next step or learn from their mistakes and then move forward. And as you do this, find your tribe because life can be really lonely. So the more people you find who will be in your corner or work with you, it just makes life more enjoyable.
Yes, 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 yes. That enjoyable. We need to channel joy right now, don't we? Especially, especially Pride is tough out there. But thank you so much for finishing on such a beautiful note around joy and community. I have loved chatting to you. Thank you for being part of
Me
Queer
too. This has
Leadership
been so
101.
nice.
Yeah, and for being part of our collective as well and bringing, so much expertise and yourself into it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. See you soon. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.